What's up, guys? Today, I just want to talk about animation as a medium. As you guys have probably seen or heard, in the last 10 years, anime has just had such a radical increase in popularity. A lot of different factors have gone into that, but it's just funny when you compare it to animation in the West and how little there is, I guess, is the best way to put it, or at least not nearly the same level of mature content coming out. And I don't even mean anything necessarily too crazy, but obviously if you ask a lot of people what animation, what do they think of? A lot of people really only have the two ends of the spectrum, it's like it's either a Disney movie or it's South Park. And that's what is animated these days. You're either watching SpongeBob or Family Guy, and there's really not a middle ground. And I think obviously there is. We see the proof in the pudding with the different anime that have been coming out and breaking crazy records. I mean, since 2020, it has been on such a meteoric rise that I'm sure nobody really expected. And it is hopefully going to show that this is a medium and not a genre. And I can't speak for overseas, but in the West, it is very much considered like a genre. I'm pretty sure if like the Oscars, it's an animation category that you can win, and it's just like there's so many different types of stories you can tell. There's such a range of stories that are told even, and they're all just kind of narrowed down into, well, it's animated, so. And that's just a shame because obviously there's so many good projects out there that deserve the love beyond just being like, this was the best animated thing. And I don't know why that it isn't really increased. Like, you get shows like Invincible. I know there's like a Boys spinoff that was animated, and you're getting more and more stuff that is not like, the Family Guy-esque cartoon or children's television. But it's just obviously not at the same level as it is in Japan or even some of the other territories that do animated content very often. And I'm curious if it's almost the lack of pipeline set up. And what I mean by that is, like, obviously anime is adaptations of like manga, light novels, stuff of that nature. And I mean, we have comic books and they do get animated content for sure. Obviously, Creature Commandos came out not that long ago, and I do believe DC still plans on doing some more stuff under the James Gunn's direction. And DC in general has been making great animated content for a while now. But other than that, really nobody. And it's just a shame. Like I said, I don't know if it's because just it's not an exact like, oh, okay, here's the manga coming out, like let's look and see what's good, like what people are liking, and we'll pick that up and adapt it. There's so many different things that could be adapted though. I've recently got back into reading, and I was thinking like there's so many good fantasy books that could be adapted. And honestly, if they were adapted, I think animation would just easily be the superior format, just given the nature of like fantasy genre stuff. I don't think live action, it can be done well, obviously. People love Lord of the Rings movies and stuff like that. I'm not going to say it's never done well or right, but I just think that the upside potential through animation is higher than the live action, especially if you give it a TV show as opposed to a movie. With the movie, because I feel like that's like the go-to, like, all right, let's adapt this into a movie. You're condensing it into a single, like 2 to 4 hour experience, with 4 being on like the heavy end. And I mean, granted, that's a decent chunk of time, but I mean, how many times do you hear that the book was better than the movie? Almost every single time. Like 1 out of 10 is it ever really the other way where the movie was better. And that's just because there's so much more you can put into the book that the reader gets, like the world building, certain, even story events that get cut once you get to the movie, because it's like this just isn't important enough to the whole plot. And they understand that, hey, adding length to a movie can be detrimental after a certain point, for sure. It's going to be harder to get audiences to want to go and sit down and watch it. It's going to be harder to get people to pay attention the whole time. So I really do think television in general would be better. But beyond that, I think that the animation aspect of it, it's like, how many times do you hear people complaining about bad CGI? Or it's like, And it just makes sense, like maybe I can understand why a performance from an actor would be worse if they didn't really have a real thing to play off of. Like if you've ever seen, I know this is a crazy comparison, but like the behind the scenes footage of like Ted, and you can see Mark Wahlberg is literally just talking to like obviously just a regular stuffed bear as like a place taker, so you can kind of like direct his vision and energy towards where Ted's character will eventually be put in. But I mean, that's a pretty good actor at that. I mean, I know that's crazy when I'm talking about Mark Wahlberg, no disrespect, but I just think that maybe that those types of little things when producing a live action movie of something, animated or not animated, of like a fantasy thing or anything where you're going to have to CGI entire characters in order for it to actually work. I just don't know if that's really the best setup to get the best performances, the best version of the story. Whereas like animation gives you so much more room to work with than live action ever does, because it's animated. You can do whatever you want, literally. I think another issue and why it isn't done more might also just be the inherent cost and time that it takes to do those things in animation. I mean, if you look at the Spider-Verse situation right now, great movies, exactly, the kind of stuff that I would love to see more of. But I mean, rumor has it that it's just kind of in development hell right now because of how terribly the different artists, because there's so many different artists that go into a project like that. You have, lighting, like every different aspect has like a different person that's in charge of it and like putting their touch on it for the final product. And I'm sure that's not a cheap thing to do, for sure. So I just think that there's other properties that would lend themselves so well to animation beyond the cost. But look, if it does well, the cost is probably worth it. And how many times do movie budgets or even TV budgets? Look at Rings of Power. I'm not a big Lord of the Rings fan, but whatever the Amazon Prime one was, that had such an insane budget. I don't really fully know what the reception of that project was. I didn't hear great things from fans. So either way, it just goes to show that either way, it's going to cost you a ton of money and it might not pay off still. And I think animation is just such an underutilized medium over here that there's so many different Western properties, like whether it be books or maybe something else I'm not even thinking of, that could be adapted and would do so well. Like I said, like look at Invincible. Invincible, I don't want to say was breaking the internet, but it was doing huge numbers. So it's obvious that there is a hunger for it and there is a desire to consume it. It's just now on a company to pick up that torch and take it. But let me know what you guys think, some different properties or things you think you would like to see get adapted. And yeah, that'll be it. Thanks for listening. Bye.